Sikkim standoff, border row won't affect economic and cultural ties, says China. If India wages trade war on China, why would India emerge as a winner? What factors are driving the bilateral trade between India and China? Give a brief note on India-China cultural relations from historical perspective. GS Paper 2, Bilateral, Regional and Global Groupings and Agreements Involving India and or Affecting India's Interests. What is the context about? Amid the border standoff between India and China in the Sikkim area, Chinese officials stated that the long-standing economic and cultural ties between the two countries will not be affected. They said, India and China have enjoyed historical and cultural connections over thousands of years. And, be it trade or other relationships, we have been establishing ties. This border issue, I reckon, is temporary. If India wages trade war on China, why would India emerge as a winner? India-China bilateral trade progressed to over $70 billion, while Chinese investments in India was $1.06 billion last year, registering 7.5% growth. India's vast domestic market means it has an advantage for both domestic as well as foreign trade. The consuming class in India is far bigger than the population of many countries, so we represent a huge market. We don't have to go around advertising it. It gives us the heft to demand concessions in return for Indian goods and services. China's production strength requires a market, and the US is no longer a Chinese market. Thus India is becoming a more important market for China. And the trade war at the moment would definitely hurt China. What factors are driving the bilateral trade between India and China? Although China's economy is 3 times as large as India's, its manufacturing sector is 5 times that of India's. Chinese exports to India thus consist primarily of manufactured goods, especially various types of machinery. Conversely, India has some of the world's largest reserves of iron ore, bauxite, and manganese, and its exports to China consist primarily of raw materials to feed that country's expanding steel and automotive sectors. India has emerged as a global powerhouse in information technology, IT, and IT-enabled services. Language differences create natural barriers to the export of these services from India to China. Thus, many of India's larger IT companies invest directly in local operations within China. Give a brief note on India-China cultural relations from historical perspective. India and China may be reckoned easily to have different cultures in the true sociological sense. Most importantly, these two giants of Asia are unique 21st century examples of unbroken civilizations extant for over 3,000 years, contiguous territorially, and with significant mutual influence in areas like religion and ordinarily cultural symbols like art, literature, etc. For our historical references, we still depend on Pre-Asoka Megasthenes Indica, 1st century AD anonymous author of Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, 1st century AD Roman historian Pliny, Chinese traveler Faxian, Fahan, contemporaneous with the 3rd–4th century Gupta period, 7th century Chinese traveler Xuanzang contemporaneous with Harshaw, 11th century Arabian historian al-Biruni.